I want to come back to something you touched on a minute ago and explore a little bit more some of the really simple mind body interventions that people can use to help overcome or deal with trauma. Tell me a little bit more about yoga, and I know you've also written and spoken about qigong as another potential solution. Tell me more about those, what the research shows. And
You see, our culture is not a culture that is very much focused on self-regulation, but there's other cultures like Chinese are very good at, some Indians very good at it, where you can really learn to control your own physiology. And so there's these age-old Chinese and Indian methods where you can actually learn to, by controlling your breath and controlling your movements, can manage your own physiological arousal. And so the only thing I've studied there is yoga. I've not really studied Tai Chi or Qigong, but I'd be surprised if they wouldn't do the same thing. You can actually learn to manage the housekeeping of your body, which gets so disturbed by trauma, by engaging in a regular yoga practice and really learning how to move and to breathe in a way that makes you feel calm and safe. I call this sort of our post-alcoholic culture. And so the mainstream culture, the Western culture, is very much, if you feel bad, take a drug. And so we give these very contradictory messages to our kids. We say to our kids, don't take drugs, but take this drug for your ADHD or take this drug for your bipolar illness. And what we don't really teach kids or adults in our culture is you can actually regulate your own physiology. And one of the things that I'm really pushing with whoever I can talk to is that every school should learn the 4 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic, and self-regulation, and that every school actually should teach kids how to regulate their own physiology. It should be a basic skill that all of us as humans should learn.
so let's dig into that a little bit. Tell me practically, what does it look like to use some of these techniques to regulate your own physiology?
You start every day with doing yoga or qigong. You start by sitting still, focusing on your body, activating the interoceptive part of your brain, the midline cortical structure of your brain, which has to do with self-regulation. You pay attention to your internal world. You pay attention to the way you move. You pay attention to the way you breathe. You notice how your breathing patterns change your thinking and your mood patterns, and you really become familiar with your own internal world. And so basically what I advocate is that everybody, but particularly traumatized people, really have a practice in which every day they practice being still and working with their bodies to regulate their physiology.
What would you say to somebody who's listening to this interview who thinks that yoga or meditation or some of these practices are unscientific or kind of new agey or not really effective interventions for traumatic experiences?
I would say read the literature. That means that you really are familiar with the science, and you should look up my name and go into Google Scholar and see the research that I and other people have done.
So the science is resoundingly clear that a lot of these sometimes ancient mind-body interventions are really bearing out to be really effective ways of managing our own bodies and integrating our mind and body more closely.
Yeah, that may be why people have been doing it for thousands of years, yeah. Chanting is also very good for people. Chanting changes your heart rate variability, changes the way that your brainstem, the core of your brain, has to do with regulating your body, works. Every religion involves chanting, basically. It's very sad that people don't chant as so much in our culture anymore. Our grandparents all chanted and sang, but we don't do it very much anymore. And we should go back to actually singing in unison with other people, as people have always done in every religion, because it helps people to feel calm and safe. The military also does it, to do the cadences. And so moving and singing together is very good for people's physiology.
And is that something that you have to be chanting with other people to sync up kind of collectively together, or can you do it by yourself?
You probably can do it by yourself, but traditionally, since time immemorial, people have worked on making themselves feel calm and a member of a community by singing together. And making music together is a communal enterprise. And one of the big things with trauma is that you feel isolated, lonely, and bereft and separated from anybody else, learning how to get in tune with other people, being in sync with other people is undoubtedly a very good thing when you're traumatized.
What about something, or what has your research shown around things like exposure therapy or revisiting past experiences or past traumas as a methodology for healing or overcoming traumatic experiences?
Well, blasting people with the memory of the trauma is the worst thing you can do to people. You may, if you blast people long enough, make them desensitize them, but you will also desensitize them to themselves and everything else around them. And so making people less sensitive is not the purpose of treatment. I think the whole notion of exposure treatment is really a misunderstanding about what traumatic stress does, because it's not the memory that really is the primary issue, but it's the fact that your brain has changed in response to the old thing. You need to help your brain to feel safe in the present. It's indeed helpful to be able to relive the memory from a very safe point of view, but the most important thing is that the mind and the brain needs to be very calm as you revisit the horror of the past. And so making people feel horrified as they relive the past is very, very bad for them and would be anti-therapeutic. And the reason why we do things like psychedelics and MDMA when we give people, treat people for PTSD, is because these drugs help people feel very safe and very calm, so that the mind and the brain is capable of actually going back there and saying, yes, this happened to me, but this happened to me a long time ago. So just blasting people with their past is very bad for them.
This is obviously a point you made earlier in the conversation, but it bears repeating because it's such an important understanding of the way that this functions, that it's not about the memory of the experience, but rather that because of the experience, the brain, the body, really the entire system, or your entire system is locked into this state of being on high alert or being in threat mode. And that these interventions, these mind-body interventions like yoga or chanting, etc., are ways to help people feel safe inside their own bodies.
Yes, the core. The operative word here is feeling safe, calm, and in control over your own physiology. So you don't want to do anything that just blast people with things that make them feel out of control again. And so the whole teaching issue is, how can I help you to feel safe inside and to have the courage to face very, very difficult things while you feel safe and you feel like no harm can occur to you. So the most important thing is to create an environment of safety and physiological calm in which healing can occur.
So at the risk of rehashing some of the stuff we've already talked about, I think it bears digging back into this a little bit. Tell me really specifically, what are the best strategies that your science, your research, decades in trauma treatment have uncovered for helping people feel safe, calm, and in control of their own bodies and their own physiologies?
Well, so it starts off as feeling safe in your body. And that means that you need to actually do something that allows you to feel your sensations without being freaked out by them. So the experience of trauma is relived in the form of heartache and gut-wrenching physical sensations. As a bodily experience of, oh my God, I'm in danger and this is intolerable. So the reason why people take drugs is because they have intolerable physical sensations. They cannot stand the way their body feels. And so the core issue is we need to help people to feel safe in their bodies. And so breathing, moving, chanting, yoga, qigong, maybe dancing, massages, maybe one. People have to discover first, how can I make my body feel safe? And once your body feels safe, you can allow yourself to slowly go to experiences from the past that are too horrifying to meet and to encounter again. So once you feel really safe, you can bite off little pieces of what happened back then and say, yes, that was horrible. But when I was 3 years old and when I was 18-year-old, seeing that person being blown up or being threatened or being raped was horrendous. But because I feel safe right now, I can really deeply appreciate that what happened back then is something that belongs to my past and not to my present. But you can only do that once your body feels safe and feels deeply rooted in the time that you live in, 2018 in our case. You see, mindfulness is difficult for most traumatized people because becoming still means that you empty out your mind and then the demons from the past tend to come up. So just sitting still in meditation is for most traumatized people a big challenge. So doing something like yoga tai chi might help your mind to focus and your body to focus, and generally is more safe for people than just sitting in meditation. But I have nothing but great respect for people who have the capacity to sit in silence for 10 days and allow the demons to come out and to wrestle with them and to lay them to rest.
That's an interesting point, and one I think that's worth digging into a little bit more, this idea that meditation is a very effective strategy, but it's often very challenging to sit and experience those feelings. And that's why something with a little bit of movement, with a little bit of activity to help ground you in your body really helps make it easier to deal with those feelings of fear and panic and anxiety that you're viscerally experiencing.
And the other thing that's important to say is that none of this has to do with understanding. Has nothing. So explaining why you're messed up helps people to understand. Oh, now I know why I'm messed up. But understanding why you're messed up does not stop you from being messed up. So explaining to people, oh, you shouldn't feel that way because this happened a long time ago, and today is December 2018. How can you be so stupid to continue to feel like that? Is not really a good treatment, and you should not pay for treatments like that.
And I think you previously phrased it in such a way that it's not a problem that you can rationally solve.
That's right. The rational brain has nothing to do with this. This has to do with your animal brain, has to do with the housekeeping of your body and your core entity of yourself that feels in danger, even though you know that you're not in danger. You know that rationally this person is not going to hurt you, but your body feels like this person is about to rape you again. So it comes from a different part of your brain that comes from that right deep survival part of your brain, and you need to go into your survival brain. Sitting on your butt and talking about it is not going to solve the issue.
So for somebody who's listening to this conversation, who wants to practically start implementing some of these solutions, whether it's breathing, chanting, yoga, etc., what are there any particular resources or practices or strategies, whether that either you researched or that you recommend or that you think are great starting places for getting back into the body and creating that sense of calm and peace with yourself?
That is the big question. I think, if you go to the American Psychological Association website, and there are some people who advertise themselves as being trauma savvy. They may or may not be. Indeed, anybody who can work with bodily states would be very helpful. I think EMDR, eye movement desensitization and processing, is a very nice technique to help lay relatively uncomplicated trauma to rest. Important thing too. So there's a lot of EMDR trainers, people who have been trained in somatic experiencing or sensory motor psychotherapy tend to be people who basically know the principles of this. Going to trauma-sensitive yoga is helpful. Going to certain healing centers like Palo Yoga Center here in Massachusetts is helpful. There's the Sidran Foundation. It's a foundation that has good resources. The Trauma Center, the Trauma Research Foundation, we have resources on our website. Also, Somatic Experiencing does. The Center for Self-Leadership has very good resources. Actually, my book has a whole bunch of resources in the back of it of people who do various things that are helpful. What's important here is that, we have this rush towards evidence-based treatments, but it's important to remember this work is 30 years old. People had just been gradually discovering all kinds of new things. For example, 10 years ago, I knew nothing about neurofeedback. Most people I know still don't know anything about neurofeedback. But now a number of people are good with neurofeedback. 2 years ago, we started to do MDMA therapy, and that's very promising. So all of this is a work in progress. And so this is not like, oh, we have discovered it, we know what the truth is, and this is what the evidence is. No, people are continuously learning, finding new treatments. So it's important to know that this is an evolving field.
I think that's a very important disclaimer. And we'll make sure to include all of the various resources, obviously linked to your book and your website, and all the resources you mentioned in the show notes for listeners who want to come and do some homework or want to find some really detailed solutions and strategies. I wanted to clarify or understand, dig a little bit deeper into two of the things you mentioned. One, just a point of clarification, and forgive me for mispronouncing it, but you said something with the Cedron Foundation, or I missed that.
Cedron, SIDRAN is a foundation that has paid close attention to this, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. We'll make sure that's in the notes. And then the second one, you mentioned the phrase somatic experiencing. Tell me a little bit, what is that and how does it work?
Somatic experiencing is one particular trauma treatment that very much focuses on the body getting stuck in trauma and helping to release and feel safe in your body. It's similar to another sister method called somatic experiencing, the sensory motor psychotherapy, two methods developed by two different friends of mine. So EMDR is a very strange technique that invented by Francine Shapiro about 25 years ago, who discovered that if you call up a memory and you move your eyes from side to side, that oftentimes lead to that memory losing some of its power. And it's something that I did research on, funded by the National Institute of Health, and we found that indeed it's very helpful in many, many cases. And we recently finished a study in a brain scanner seeing what it does, and that actually we were able to show that moving your eyes from side to side indeed does activate some brain circuits that has to do with self-perception and being able to put things in the proper time sequence.
It's great to see all of these different techniques and strategies. There's a lot of solutions out there for people who might be experiencing trauma, who are suffering and struggling. For listeners who are listening to this episode who want to start with one simple action item or piece of homework to implement some of the ideas and solutions we've talked about today, what would be one piece of advice you'd give for them?
I think the first action item actually is two. One is to take care of your body and to really begin to develop a loving relationship to taking care of your body. And I think yoga, qigong, maybe tango dancing, maybe martial arts, a way in which you really get in touch with your bodily sensations and learn how to manage your bodily sensations would be the foundation as far as I'm concerned. Being able to tell somebody what has happened to you and what you're so terrified of is also very helpful. Being able to get things off your chest, being able to say to somebody, I was raped, I was molested. To really tell the truth is also very important. It doesn't make it go away, but being able to put it out there and say, this is what I'm struggling with, is a very important issue also. Being met by somebody who really takes you very seriously and doesn't try to fix you, but tries to help you to find ways in which you can feel better about yourself is very important.
And for listeners who want to, actually, before we get into that, I have one other theme or question that came up when you were talking about that I wanted to ask about. For something as simple as a cardio workout, whether it's biking, walking, running, have you found any research or any work around whether that's an effective way to get back into the body and help alleviate some of this?
It can be, but cardio workouts can also be great ways of actually separating from your body. Being like a mouse on a treadmill, it doesn't really make your mind feel more connected with your body. People can use marathon running and these very hard exercises as ways of not feeling themselves. So it's really the mindful body techniques that are helpful. But if you go to a gym and you go on the treadmill, you watch Fox News, I would not call that good trauma treatment.
I think that's an important insight, and I wanted to understand that. So for listeners who want to find you, find your book, your work, et cetera, online, what's the best place for them to go to do that?
I have a Facebook blog, The Body Keeps Score. My book is worth reading. I like to say it has sold 3 million copies, so it must be worth reading for some people. Our website is traumaresearchfoundation.org. And then I have a personal website called basselvanderkolk.com.
Well, Dr. Vander Kolk, thank you so much for coming on the show, for sharing all of your incredible research and experience and strategies and solutions for overcoming trauma.
Thank you.